So I started this morning, and I had so many things to react to that I just started making slides. So let me just share with you my slides, although I don't know how to do the slideshow. So from beginning, is that what I did? Okay, so introductions, beginnings, period, are difficult things, and one never knows how to convey themselves biographically to other people. So let me tell you a little bit about me. I was raised in farming in New Mexico. My family's been farming and ranching in West Texas since 1876. And losing, it's a losing game. That's why I stand before you today, okay? I was in the Future Farmers of America. I believe in the future of farming, with faith born not of words, but of deeds. Does anybody recognize those words? Yeah, a few of you? Interesting, right? I attended both the University of Southern Cook County, down there in Hyde Park, and Northern Cook County in Evanston, where I went to do my graduate work at both schools. Y'all don't get that joke? You know? And I met my wife here in town, so Chicago means a great deal to me. Chicago means a great deal to me as a place. I've been involved with all sorts of grants and research on food systems for 20 years. I was a vendor at the old Maxwell Street Market. That's how I did my dissertation research in 88, 89, 90. And so, I mean, I have a long experience. I'm a reviewer for various USDA grant programs. I use you know, I'm a gardener, I'm an advocate and consultant. So I bring a variety of lenses to the table. Whenever, at the inception of this, there was the notion of local. It seems to me that local has three important dimensions for us to consider. One of them is the interpersonal, another is the organizational, and then the third is regulatory. Each of those has geographic implications, right? Each of those has you know, different ways that jurisdictions set those up. In every one of those dimensions, context matters. So for instance, I write a little bit about food justice, right? Food justice and gender and among people of color, or colorful folks, as I like to say, right? So it always has implications. One of the things that was discussed today was food deserts. Lauren mentioned food deserts mean nothing and lots of things. My favorite example is business parks. I can take you to business parks all over Cook County that are food deserts, from which people who go to sell produce there will make a premium. In the same way there's segmentation in retail activity, there's segmentation in all food-related activities. So when we think of food deserts, right, I mean, so, you know, be that as it may conceptually, I just wanted to trot that out. Our perspective about these things and the particular context we're observing has a lot to say. All right. So let me give you some examples. So this is work we're doing at Wisconsin, meeting the Midwest global food situation. So here we have the Circle City, from Minneapolis, St. Paul to Nurpsey, right, Kevin? There you go. 20-odd million people live in this area, all kinds of activities. When we think about scale in that, we can think of the super region, right? We can think about the states and their jurisdiction. We can think about regional economic collaboratives. We can think about production regions. Oftentimes, we're visiting, Eric and I, and he was talking about a restaurant that has a 200 miles where they secure their source from. You know, there's lots of ways you can put boundaries on such an idea. One of them is by way of production regions, right? Where can product be viably grown? Local, community, metro, and of course we can dive down deeply into the particular areas that community-based organizations carve out and whatnot. Another way to think about scale is in terms of its intersection with human values, with the things we care about. So we can have personal production at the center of the circle, right? Which I garden because I don't farm, thank God. And so I garden and I love to garden. And I love to share the fruits of my labor. I like to swap with people. I've been gardening for a long time. I use my mom's recipes for canning stuff and whatnot, you know. To me, it has a personal, sentimental value, right? But then you can kind of go out from that and you get the values embedded in relationships between the producer and the consumer. So the sort of know your farmer sort of thing. And we can go work all the way out to global and very anonymous situations where you have ADM, Unilever, Cargill, Monsanto, the biggest right? Where the values there are pretty much solely market-oriented values. The business might be done on the golf course, but it's in the name of the big market-oriented values. So, on the one hand, you have different sorts of scale, different ways to think about scale, and you have different ways that scale interacts with human values. Now, another way to think about scale is in terms of what we might do to advance our goals in distribution, for instance. Distribution is something that I do a lot of research on and write a lot about. So work with a student that we're doing has, in the abstract, how a region or a particular jurisdiction might design a food cluster that unites producers, distributors, processors, and buyers in this sort of way. And let me tell you, Edie has all these slides. You're welcome to them. Okay, you're welcome. She'll email them to you. You're welcome to them. I just ask that if you cite any of it, you please cite the presentation, right? Because just do me that favor. So, anyways, there's many ways to do this sort of institutional design. You don't necessarily you can focus, depending upon your organization and the scale you work at, you might focus on different parts of it, partnering with other organizations to establish a cluster. Okay. Another way to think about scale is in alleys. Okay, of all the many examples that I thought of, I just pulled these out. This is an alley in Baltimore that's been repurposed, right, for social and small-scale production. Right? And there's examples of ordinances in California and in Maryland for this sort of activity, to sort of foster social relationships, different sorts of activities. So you notice how I went sort of from the global down to the individual in thinking this through. So now, let's take a step back from those initial thoughts about what it is that we might mean by local and how it nests in other scales. And let me consider some of the unwatched for opportunities that may be out there on the horizon that are implicit in this discussion but haven't been drawn out yet. Okay? So one of them is energy production. We're doing work right now. I have our workshop this fall in urban regional planning is devoted to energy planning in the 9-county region in southwest Wisconsin. Bioenergy is very important there, and the different sources of agricultural-related bioenergy. So when we talk about energy, it's so important to talk about energy in society in all sorts, in many of the ways you heard this morning, and all the ways you heard this morning, how it is that local regional agriculture might be a source of energy, literally energy. Agriculture and distribution systems. Something that we haven't talked a lot about today, but could talk about is branding and sourcing. And various, you get your phone out, you get your barcode scanner, and you can identify farm, you can identify product as it moves through the cold chain, ensure its quality, ensure its nutritional value according to various practices. These models are advancing like crazy. I have a couple of articles about this that I'd be willing to share with folks. Economic, we heard a lot about this morning, processing questions like commercial kitchens. Every church in the city almost has a commercial kitchen. If you hadn't thought about that, that's an amazing thing. What you need then is regulatory apparatus, enabling things. So I'll talk about that in a second. Another thing is transportation logistics. There ought to be a bullet there, I apologize. So that then unites organizations like CMAP, the Metropolitan Planning Organization that is transportation planning, and organizations at the university level like CFIRE, the Center for Freight Infrastructure Research at the University of Wisconsin, or the Mid-America Freight Coalition. All those organizations have food prominently as part of their activities. Local, regional food production, processing. So partnering with them, looking to them to legitimize your interests is I think, an important opportunity. Education, let me talk about that. That has a special place in the university professor's heart.